Hi everyone, this is Dan, and the future holds crypto. So I was thinking that today we should look a little bit on the market first. By the way, this is not financial advice. This is only for entertainment purposes. Don't do anything or buy anything because you've seen it on this channel. Please do your own research. If we look here on the prices today, we see that Bitcoin is the only one up. It's almost $1,200. It's everything else is down. But you see that Bitcoin did go up a bit in the last few days, and it is also visible very well in the Bitcoin dominance chart. This is not something to worry about. If Bitcoin starts to explode to the upside or steadily rise to the upside, usually with a lag, it will drag everything else with it, or not everything else, but most important, most of the cryptocurrencies with it to the upside, as it does to the downside when it falls. So now you know that sometimes we do this just for fun. Let's look at the trading indicators from eToro, not from eToro, for Trading Central. We're not doing this to make any plans or trading. You know that I'm usually I'm most on the investment side. I want to accumulate more. I don't want to trade because I think it's too stressful and the market is too volatile, especially in crypto. But I do believe that in long-term investments will be the best thing that you can do in this market. So I'm just looking at these indicators for fun and to see what they are saying. Basically, in the last few days, they were not necessarily wrong, or weeks actually, they were not necessarily wrong. However, remember that these are just indicators. The market can react in each way without without any anything that can be seen here or any indicator at all. So if we look at the Bitcoin here, Bitcoin, you see that it looks pretty bullish. I mean, on the 30-minute chart, on the short term, it looks like we're gonna pass to $12,000, and on the 1-day chart, a little bit on the longer term, not necessarily very long term, but it might be happening fast. $14,000, which is it would be very interesting to see this, because after that we don't have a lot of resistances, and we might reach all-time high pretty soon. But let's see what happens. If we look at the XRP, it shows that it still shows about 31 cents. The forecast for Ethereum, $520, S&P 53700, and Dow Jones 30,800, something like that. So we don't see anything bearish here yet. However, reminder, we are still under we still have the pandemic situation, and we have very huge debt growing in printing and stuff like that. Things can go sideways or in a blink of an eye, so keep that in mind. With this, we can go to the next subject. As maybe you have seen my latest videos, but if you didn't, I really recommend for you guys to watch them. I think the most important one is the Hidden Secrets of Money and the clash of
because it's got numbers on it.
The old economic system and technology, or the digital age, and the Great Reset. I know it sounds like a conspiracy, but it is happening. So this will be this video will help you understand how money works, how the cycles from an economic perspective worked in the world, in history in general, and what were the cycles and how it usually happens, where we are now compared to that, where we might be actually, because nothing is for certain. But it's a good thing to take a look here, because I've chosen very trustworthy sources. And I also have this video that is basically I've tried to do a summary with the most important moments from the IMF cross-border payments conference. I also added some things from the DC FinTech Week, like Ripple CEO and the CFTC chairman on the China competition. So please take a look on those. I think they're important. By the way, if you think if you like this channel or the video, please hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel and share with your friends and family. To go further in this video, I wanted to wanted to reinforce what we discussed in the previous video. In the previous videos, I wanted to say that if you look around, we have been witnessing a very important week. Everything exploded related to crypto recently. It's an explosion. I see it everywhere. Everybody's talking about it, like from making fun of crypto in general, from saying it's used only by criminals and stuff like that, to an explosion everywhere. They're talking about this technology, the crypto in general. We're seeing the World Economic Forum, IMF. We see a lot of conferences all over the world talking about it. We see the central banks that are considering to go with digital currency, central banks' digital currencies. We are seeing China that already launched a digital currency. We see that US this year has approved banks to custody crypto. We're seeing a lot of movements. I mean, this is an explosion. This is here to stay. It's still incipient, but it's happening. It's happening, and it certainly will be helpful for us to be with the wave, not against the wave, and for everyone in general. So yeah, it's here to stay. You can see it everywhere. It is also a clash between the old system and the new system. We discussed about decentralized system, the birth of the decentralized systems, and how and that the fact that at the moment it's either an integration. We are witnessing an integration or a fight between the two systems. I believe that we will see many stages of this and evolution of these two systems clashing together. It's only the beginning, but I do believe that we'll be seeing more and more of these decentralized systems growing and being part of our lives. And I also suspect that we will see a lot of attempts from the centralized systems and governments in general trying to control the decentralized system somehow, like by joining them at first, by trying to integrate them, by regulating them and everything like that. But I don't think but I think they're here to stay, and we're witnessing the very first moments of a very important part of history in general. So yeah, I mean, definitely we can talk about this more, but we can go into the next subject, which is we are going back to IMF, because they released since the conference they released a document. It's related to digital money across borders, micro financial implications. So we have this document here. It's public. So, digital money across border, micro financial implications, executive summary. Rapid ongoing progress with digital technologies has increased the prospects for adoption of new forms of digital money for both domestic and international transactions. These include central banks' digital currencies and the so-called global stable coins proposed by large technological companies or platforms. However, I'm just going to, I chose some small paragraphs to read through the document. I will link this document in the description because it's huge. It's not huge, but it has 50 pages, and we cannot go through it in this video. You can study it for yourselves after watching this video or whenever you want. So let's continue. Our digitalization could drive international use of currencies in ways that are distinct from traditional dynamics. CBDCs and GSCs, global stablecoins, potentially lower transaction costs by increasing competition, widen access to services, and promote financial inclusion through mobile devices, and open the possibility of complementary services offered on the social networking and e-commerce platforms of global scale. Social networking. Remember Libra. This is basically Libra and Facebook actually were the ones that ignited a lot of these conversations because they're a huge company. They said they wanted to do this, and then everybody woke up because the smaller companies like Ripple were not. I'm not sure if they were necessarily making huge waves like Facebook managed because of the size of this company and the reach they have. Actually, you know that they have the reach to influence elections all over the globe. So yeah, the benefits of using CBDCs and GSCs for cross-country transactions are conceptually clear, although difficult to quantify at this stage. Making a payment or transferring funds across borders could be just as easy as sending an email. This could reduce transaction costs cost to the benefit of end users, especially for small transactions. Perhaps more importantly, it affords the prospect of access to a wide range of other cross-border financial services, leveraging the big data generated from individual transactions. So we have seen this narrative since a lot of time already. I mean, Ripple has said that that sending money should be easy or value, actually the internet of value. They're trying to build the internet of value, and value should be as easy to transfer in the digital age as the normal information. So it's good that everybody started to talk about it. So let's go through a little bit of some other paragraphs here. New forms of digital money are increasingly capturing policymakers' attention. Of course they are. China already launched. They have to try to at least not stay too much to remain how do you call it? My English is asleep already. I think it's kind of late here already, but they're certainly trying to not stay ahead because they're already behind. But it's important. They are trying not to stay too further away behind. Digitalization of money and payments has the potential to shock the organization of the international financial system. At the same time, distributed ledger technology, DLT, such as blockchain, has made it possible to use digital tokens to transfer value over peer-to-peer systems without necessarily going through a central party. For example, commercial or central banks. Making a payment overseas could be just as easy as sending an email. Again, as a result, the present international monetary landscape, which is based on the connecting banking systems spread around the globe, is different in different locations and time zones, could be reconfigured. This is huge, and yeah, it's happening. CBDCs and GSCs could make cross-border payments less costly and make it easier for households and small firms to have access to financial services. You can also see here the evolving landscape for cross-border payments. We see here the current deposit-based transfer system, payee. You have these centralized systems here that are delimited, very well delimited, And you see here the graph for the network created by nodes and ledgers, and everything will be considerably different and much better performing and than this old, very old system that is that hasn't been keeping up at all with the technology and the evolution we've done in the past 40 years. Okay, let's go further. This paper explores stylized scenarios of cross-border use of CBDCs and GSCs in order to illustrate and explore their possible implications. This is not an effort to forecast specific outcomes or judge their desirability. The hypothetical scenarios range from niche use for small cross-border payments to pervasive adoption is a subset of countries to global adoption of a single GSC, global stablecoin, or a multipolar world featuring intense competition between a few major central bank digital currencies and global stablecoins. They're already considering scenarios and outcomes based on those scenarios. It's very we see here the terminology of digital money, the first generation crypto asset, Bitcoin. We see here stable coins. We see central bank digital currencies over here after private. So it's basically an evolution from private money, which is an evolution from the first generation crypto or whatever decentralized public money. Now we see here stablecoins Tether and global stablecoins Libra. They want to say that this basically is on the private part and this should be on the public part. It is interesting that they mention Libra as the first. So it's a good thing to watch out for. So keep in mind, I must remind you that the central bank digital currencies will be part of the centralized system. It won't have anything to do with decentralized cryptocurrency. The governments will have full control over it, and this will have implications, especially with drawing taxes automatically or tracking every move you make with your money and stuff like that. I mean, to some degree, I think this already happens, but it's much harder to watch with cash. However, with privacy in general, I mean, on the internet, I think you'd be amazed to see what the big websites and products you use know about you. Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc. So yeah, still it will be a part of centralized system and the governments will control them. Big tech appears to be poised to issue global stable coins. For example, Facebook and its partners announced their intention to launch Libra, a blockchain-based digital money fully backed by assets denominated in reserve currencies. Other big techs could follow suit. At the beginning, big techs might choose to peg their global stable currencies to existing reserve fiat currencies, so as to engender trust in the stability of their value. But over time, as adoption becomes global, GSCs might be delinked from fiat currencies. They could become an independent unit of account with no backing other than the trust from users that they would be accepted as payments. That's exactly what money is today. Not money, sorry. You know what money means. Real money is something that keeps the value over long periods of time. That's gold. The examples are gold, silver, very long periods of time, thousands of years. And fiat currency is exactly what this is. I mean, they don't have anything pegged to it, or the fiat currencies are not backed by anything. Remember that. Central banks have yet to issue CBDCs, but many are seriously considering it. We have been talking about this in the previous videos. A recent survey of central banks in 21 advanced and 45 emerging market economies conducted by the BIS indicates that approximately 80% are engaging in work related to CBDC and 40% have already progressed with analytical studies to experiments or proof of concept. As far as motives for issuing CBDC, while they vary across countries, according to aforementioned reports, the main ones include providing an alternative to cash and ensuring that the public has access to a state guaranteed means of payment, reducing the cost of handling cash in countries with vast or inaccessible territories, promoting financial inclusion, particularly for the unbanked population, and improving the efficiency and safety of domestic and especially cross-border payments. The potential global adoption of stablecoins issued by the big techs could also be contributing to the interest in CBDC. Finally, the wake of COVID-19, CBDC is being contemplated as a means to enable swift disbursement of government support to households and firms, and as means of payment more hygienic than cash and consistent with the need for social distancing. And I'm going to also show you a video from Raul Paul. If they have CBDCs all over the place, they could print it in the same time, sync it up, so you won't have any lag between currencies and debasement of the value of currencies in different regions, especially when it comes to countries that have partnerships with each other. So it will be even harder to observe inflation over time and how the value is transferred from you. Okay, let me see if I have anything further away. Scenario 1: niche use for cross-border payments. You know why I selected this. I'm a fan of Ripple. A CBDC or a GSC is used as the preferred means for small value transactions such as remittances across borders due to its low cost and efficiency, or due to legal and regulatory limits that are placed on the purpose and amounts that can be transferred internationally. The CBDC or GSC would not be held for very long, in most cases for the duration of transaction, in some cases a store of value. That's exactly what they're saying in Ripple, for example, that the people mentioned that there's too much volatility for transactions, but considering the settlement or the transaction is so fast and the settlement takes about 5 seconds at most, the volatility might be actually even less than normal fiat for 5 days, which sometimes takes with SWIFT. The CBDC or GSC would be exchanged for local currency to make purchases domestically, and the CBDC or GSC would not supplant the local unit of account. The convenience and the easy accessibility of CBDCs and GSCs make them attractive as vehicle currencies. For example, instead of opening a bank account holding balances of foreign currencies, CBDCs and GSCs allow residents of foreign countries to have exposure to them without a bank account, something which in many countries is very difficult to obtain due to compliance requirements or other costs. We have the couple of scenarios here that we can look at. So scenario 1: niche adoption for specific international transactions, example remittances. No adoption for local transactions. This is scenario 1. The scenario 2: CBDC or GSC induces greater use of foreign currency in countries with lower policy credibility or undervalued payment systems. CBDC or GSC are widely used as store of value, means of payment, and unit of account. Scenario 3: global adoption of a single GSC. The GSC had its own unit of account. Scenario 4: multipolarity, where a few CBDCs or GSC with independent units of account coexist and compete. Competition can be either within or across countries. we've seen there is a transcript somewhere with David Schwartz, the CTO from Ripple, talking in another conference that happened these days. There's a conference on crypto everywhere, saying that he doesn't see a global stablecoin coming in very in a short time. It will take much more than a couple of years. I also think it won't be only one. I think probably scenario 4 might be more realistic, but it will be in phases, and we might be getting there with in different stages. So let's see what happens. It will happen though. And by the way, they were saying in a paragraph about the CBDCs and the banks not decide. They said that they're not decided. Come on. 80% of them are doing studies. They are under they are in competition. They were not only one. If only one managed to do this, everyone else will want not to fall behind. They will do it. And we already have China in place. I mean, it besides the fact that it's a competition between China and US and Europe, it will also be a competition on the private sector. So yeah, we will have CBDCs. However, it's pretty clear that they cannot do this without the private sector, and we talked about this in the summary from the IMF convention, and they actually confirmed this. They will need the private sector, and the private sector will be used basically between all of these CBDCs. Something is needed there. Something to get, especially from the government to end users. They don't have the infrastructure to go directly to the end users, and besides that, they need interoperability with all of these CBDCs coming up. They need something to transfer between all of this, and this can be a GSC or stablecoin or another asset that XRP or something, XLM or XDC, R3, we don't know. But definitely they will need a private sector, and there will be competition in the bank sector, in other tech companies. This will sprung as a new huge sector. This will change the world. This will happen. This will need a lot of knowledge and work, and it will create a technological, let's say, a niche. Not now it's a niche, but it will become mainstream. And this is why we talked about in one of the previous videos that the most important things that you can do, one of the most important things that you can do is invest in yourself. And I do believe that now, if you're learning blockchain in general, technologies and stuff like that, it will be a huge part of our future. Being it that you will be working in private, in the center to work on the centralized, to improving the centralized systems or improving the decentralized systems, it will be something major, and the need of people having this expertise will increase hugely. Keep this in mind. I'm pretty sure of that. I mean, I'm, let's say, 99.99999% sure. That's my opinion, by the way. I might be completely wrong, but this is my opinion. Global adoption. A single GSC becomes commonly adopted in many countries, and we talked about this in the previous one. But we can if you want to read more, I'm gonna link this in the description so you can read it yourself and study more. But definitely something interesting to look at and see how the world might evolve. Okay. Another interesting news that I've seen today: R3 Corda Network set to go DeFi with XDC digital currency. I know of XDC for a couple of months. I actually own a little bit. It's interesting because it's also ISO 2020. Forgot 20,020. It's they're also compliant with ISO 20020, and they're also focused on both payments and DeFi. It's some kind of XRP, but they're saying that they're next gen XRP. And we see here this announcement, and well, this is we have to wait for the announcement from Corda itself. So R3, sorry. So a group of former bankers built on R3 public Corda network are touting the first digital currency for the ecosystem, dubbed XDC. In fact, the idea of Corda Coin was floated at least at last year's CordaCon, the annual developer gathering, but only a research project at that time. Now, in reality, the Cordite Society will be minting the first run of 1 million XDC to lubricate applications on Corda. The cooperative is taking advantage of existing UK legal infrastructures for mutual societies, a provision also used by DeFi risk mitigation platform. You've seen my previous video where Ripple CEO was talking about disadvantages having the central being a company based in US because they don't have the regulatory clarity. And he also mentioned that when the regulatory clarity, if it's delayed, it will only create very huge discrepancies between the players that already had it and they could have and have evolved a lot because of that regulatory clarity. Because if, for example, there's a project has the regulatory clarity, you will have much more adopters because it's safer, people will be drawn to it. So if you don't have the clarity, people will not invest a lot into your ecosystem because you will not be considered as safe. So this is probably another example that he was thinking about. This is why maybe he mentioned that they were considering UK as well. So XDC is a digital currency in its own right, said the ex-RBS banker and Cordite CEO Richard Crook. It is issued as an exchange token to Cordite Society members. It is minted or created. It will be eventually distributed among those cooperative society members. So regulators have set the requirements for what a digital currency needs to be, and that's exactly where XDC fits in. It meets the requirements of most jurisdictions as a digital currency and is therefore a step ahead. We are a next generation Bitcoin or XRP. XRP is the next generation Bitcoin. This will be a next generation. Well, yeah. So this is some interesting news here. They basically they said that they might announce it during CordaCon, which is happening right now. I've seen that someone was streaming the presentation from the event. I haven't seen anything like that yet. So let's see what happens if this is confirmed by R3 itself. Okay, and now I wanted to show you this because we talked about this in a couple of videos already, and definitely Raul is very well known across the economic everywhere, basically in the sector and economic in general. And I will let you, you should check out the entire video because he's reinforcing a lot of things that I said. And his view is actually more complex than mine because his experience I cannot compare to his experience. But definitely it's a must if you still have doubts.
defaults, and it can cause a number of other issues. So let's keep our eye on that situation. But I think the dollar is the thing that will get sacrificed in the end, but not before it goes up a lot. The central bank digital currencies, I think, will come over the next 2 years. I think we're already seeing it in China, we're already seeing it in Sweden, Singapore's ready to launch, a number are, and they'll go slowly. So you'll be able to open a wallet with a central bank, you'll be able to make some transactions, and then you'll be slowly forced into the system, and then the whole system will be upon us. So I think by 3 years, there'll be mass adoption. By 5 years, there'll be no cash. So that's essentially how it will work. And then you can make the real structural changes. First, you have to get everybody into the system, then you make the big changes. So this is kind of a 5-year view. And so when you're looking for the life raft, okay, how do I avoid this, the debasement of currencies? Forget the freedom stuff, because I just don't think that exists in our world. But I'm more worried about the debasement of my savings. We all work hard for our money, and we don't want to get screwed by the system. And everybody has a feeling we're getting screwed somewhere, whether it's negative interest rates or zero interest rates on our savings, or being forced into those expensive equities of all time because there's nothing else to buy and our pension funds are doing it, right when people are trying to retire. All the craziness of the world right now, it just feels wrong. And it feels like there is going to be political change, and there's going to be massive structural change. So Bitcoin is my answer to that. I own gold and I own a lot more Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin works on a number of levels, and I'm not going to go into it now because there's plenty of pieces from me on why I think Bitcoin is a reserve asset, and probably the world's most pristine reserve asset. It's the only hard asset that has a fixed supply that eventually runs out, and demand is increasing. And as the world is turning towards Bitcoin and its price goes up, its market cap is only 200 billion. It's noise right now. It's like a mid-cap S&P stock. But I think it's going to overtake gold in size. Gold is about 10 or 11 trillion. I think Bitcoin goes much bigger than that over time too. But that's where it's headed, because for this modern digital world, it is the payment system that we all want. But it's also, more importantly, it's the store of value we need. So the central banks are going to compete at payments level. So that's probably the end of stablecoins. And I think the central banks will force those out of the system. But Bitcoin, as a pristine reserve asset, is something different. It's like collateral for a new system, and I think other governments will begin to adopt it. First, it won't be the big governments, but some nation will be sick and tired of currency crisis and will just adopt Bitcoin as its currency. They'll probably first start putting it into their central bank reserves because it's a harder currency, and a game theory plays out. Many people suggest to me, well, the governments are going to ban Bitcoin. The IMF, the BIS, they're all going to get together and get rid of this. Well, at 200 billion, they don't care. Tap me on the shoulder, it's at $10 trillion, we'll talk again. So there's plenty of upside to play for before it starts to become something we need to worry about. They probably will give it a go. They've tried to ban gold. Last thing I've checked, it's been working for about 6 millennia as a currency, so it didn't really work, did it? And in this world of a distributed ledger, which is owned by everybody and owned by nobody, there's almost no chance, unless you shut down the internet entirely, to get rid of Bitcoin. It's impossible. It's a cockroach in finance, something you can never kill. And you see, that is its power, and that's what makes it so incredible. That's what makes it such a great reserve asset, and this very hardness of it. So I think they may try, but in a globalized world of regulatory arbitrage, somebody else will adopt it, and somebody will allow you to use it. I know countries like the Cayman Islands, where I live. I mean, I came to the Cayman Islands, I kind of knew where the world was going many years ago, and I made a distinct move to a jurisdiction like Cayman, which I thought would offer me some freedoms over others. It also, I don't pay tax here. Well, you do. You pay tax on import duty, but not on other forms of tax. And as a Brit, I'm able to do that and become a resident here, permanent resident here, and eventually a citizen. And that's a good thing. Cayman's a different way of doing it. It's not the cheapest place to live, so it's not an answer for everybody. But it's a way out of the system. And I doubt that they're going to not allow the use of Bitcoin. They just don't have the infrastructure for it. Sure, the IMF may try and stop them. The regulators may try and stop them, but somebody will allow it. And capital finds a way. It always does. So I'm not concerned by that. And I think that's a story when Bitcoin is worth $1 million. But there's a long way between here and there. Now, some people say, well, if the central banks have got this digital currency, why do we need Bitcoin? Two different things again. Remember, payment system, and Bitcoin does that extremely well. A bit slower than it could do, but the lightning layer and all of the development can mean that. But nothing is a reserve asset like Bitcoin. Literally nothing, not even gold. It is truly extraordinary, and it's so innovative, we have no idea where it's going. And when we talk about Bitcoin, we can also look at the other parts of the digital asset ecosystem. That is not going away. The genie is out of the bottle. Ethereum is not going away. Digital assets, tokenization, it's all coming. And it's all going to slot in to these new digital currencies brought by the central banks. So payment systems and rails and everything are going to change massively. Everything we understand, it's going to be as big a revolution of money that the internet was for everything from email to video to shopping to everything to commerce. It just changed the world we live in. That's the size of what this is. And this central bank digital currency is part of that narrative. And it is positive, I think, if you own Bitcoin. It is positive, I think, if you own gold. I think gold has that place for those concerned about the future of Bitcoin. But I will take that risk in Bitcoin. I will say, I think it goes a lot higher before I have to worry about that. And I do think Bitcoin is the cockroach that can't be killed. I think it is something too powerful for even governments to overcome. And I think it is our life raft and our way out. So I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to what's really going on. How big this situation of central bank digital currencies is. It really is a game changer. And be careful of what's going to happen to your money within this. I don't think they're going to sell it that they're going to use negative interest rates, but they can go negative 10%. They're not going to sell it that now governments can say, well, we're not going into debt. So they meet their political objectives, but the central banks, who are not voted on by anybody, can do whatever they want. So all it means is they can do more of the same. And it'll get dressed up with all of the benefit statements that come with this new idea. Now, obviously, we could do all of this without a central bank digital currency and without money printing. That would be Bitcoin. Maybe that's where it's all going in the end. How far down the track that is a lot further than macro forecasting dares to go. It becomes philosophical by nature. But in macro forecasting terms, it's clear where this is going. It's clear that, as Anthony Pomp says, short the banks, long Bitcoin. The banks in Europe, sounds like we're not going to need them soon. We don't need a banking system. Richard Werner has talked about this too. The central banks are going to eat the banking system. And this is all part of how technology is eating the world. And I've talked about how before that cryptocurrencies are eating finance. Decentralized finance and fintech get rid of banks. They've all been picking at the carcass of the banking system. Banks will have to adapt or die. So this is a really, really interesting time. Now, banks go it to be nationalized and then basically becoming part of the central bank. I think somewhere towards that. I've got a crystal ball, but that's the direction we're headed in. And it feels a bit like communism, where everything is decided at a central level. And that was the kind of the Asian model as well. We saw that in China, and we've seen it in Japan as well, in the earlier days, where everything was decided at government level, who would get what money and why. And again, that has benefits, but it also has huge downsides. And that all of the downsides make gold and Bitcoin incredibly attractive. So keep peeled in this space, watch Real Vision Crypto, and watch this entire world unfold. It really...
So, I think that he made really good points. I think that we should be very attentive to what is going on around us, because it has become really, really obvious, at least from my perspective. In terms of this is just the start. Obvious in terms that I'm not sure exactly how this will evolve. Of course, nobody is sure about that. But obvious that we are at the beginning of a huge change. So thank you very much for watching. Again, if you found this helpful, please like the button, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the all bell notification button. And thank you for watching. Have a great one, and see you in the next one.